Broads Media.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Broads. This week has been so wild that I've been afraid to record a show because I feel like the moment I do it and then I end it, then, Howie Roseman is going to make a huge splash and everything I just stated really meant nothing. So what we're going to do is keep our eyes on Twitter for the next half hour or so as we attack a lot of conversation so we can absorb, what they've done because Howie Roseman is in his bag. The way I look at it, when Steph Curry is in the fourth quarter and he's got 45 points and he hits another triple, he's up to 51. The place goes crazy. Everyone can't believe it. That's Howie Roseman right now. Imagine sitting here knowing we were going to have so many holes on this roster, and in the first week, Brandon Graham returns, Fletcher Cox returns, Jason Kelce returns. You land both cornerbacks in Slay and Bradberry. We'll get to CJ Gardner-Johnson in just a moment. But that's a pretty damn solid spot to be in. You replace your backup quarterback, so now Marcus Mariota's in there instead of Gardner Minshew, and you can make the argument that the fit makes more sense because you can do a plug and play more because Mariota's more of a runner-style quarterback than Gardner Minshew is. So for whatever it's worth, if you got to go to your backup, you got to go to your backup, and that's not the greatest position to be in, but at least there's more of a stylistic player in there. You don't spend big bucks on Miles Sanders. Penny has injury history, but when he's healthy and on the field, he's outrageously good. You don't need to rely on him to be a full-time back. He's playing in front of an offensive line that is probably the best he'll ever see in his damn life, so maybe that keeps him upright as well. Maybe a little naive, thinking that he'll stay healthier just because of that, when the track record is as strong as it is, that he's always nicked up. But here's reality of the situation. There was so much fear that this team is going to look significantly different with personnel. They will not duplicate the same numbers that they did last season. You're not going to see 70 sacks. It's just impossible to keep up that type of pace. You did lose Hargrave. You lost some bodies. But at the same time, the fact that you're here with the draft still to go and some other pieces that can still be added, it's electric to keep Darius Slay and James Bradberry. And yeah, the Slay thing was a roller coaster. You thought he was going to be gone. First, when Bradberry was signed, a little light bulb went off in my head. I don't know, that sounds weird, right? Because, let's be honest, right from the rip, I didn't anticipate an opportunity to sign all three guys back. So my mind automatically shifted to, well then which one is leaving? Is it CJ Gardner-Johnson or is it Darius Slay? We were already informed that there would be some sort of contract restructure, but we didn't get that from Slay. Both parties seem to be having an issue. And Slay was granted a chance to speak with other teams to look for a trade. So I kind of shut off the Darius Slay thing for a little bit and shifted gears to CJ Gardner-Johnson, which I thought was logical in that moment. And they said he was going to get released and cut. There was no actual report on it. The Eagles didn't make it official. And he's back. And he gets a couple-year extension with it. But this is the thing where, social media cracks me up. Oh, they overpaid. Wow, look at that money. Howie Roseman manipulates everything. Money doesn't matter. If there's fear in money right now, and you're looking ahead, well, how are they going to do this? How are they going to do that? How are they going to sign Jalen Hurts? I promise you that Howie Roseman didn't sign Bradberry and Darius Slay and bring back some other pieces and go, oh, damn it! Damn it! Jeffrey, I forgot all about Jalen! That's not how this goes. Jalen Hurts is number one on their mind. The big fat payday, that's going to be over $50 million. It's going to be fat. They didn't forget about this. They know exactly what they're doing. You could question draft picks. You could question not drafting a cornerback. for 20-plus years in the first round. There's an area, if you want to target Howie Roseman and say he's been weak, and it hasn't been that case recently, but once in his career, there was a time where it was very uncomfortable heading into the NFL draft. If there was one area, it's the complete opposite, where it should be full-blown faith, is the money. We were told during the time of the Carson Wentz ugliness that this team was going to be set back for 7 years because of how much dead money there was, how screwed he was. We were in the Super Bowl last year. It was a quick flip. Money is what he's stellar at. Money is why he's where he is. That's his bread and butter. I don't worry about that at all. So Slay, extension, this and that. There were some Eagles fans trying to convince themselves that Darius Slay, when they thought he was going to get cut, wasn't good anymore. Oh, look at his second half stats. Stop it. Darius Slay is still one of the best in the game. It's just reality of the situation. Bradberry is good. Bradberry's way better when opposite of Darius Slay. And if you want to point out a couple plays, yeah, but there was this play. Yeah, he made a mistake. He's got to make a mistake. No quarterback is perfect. Jalen Ramsey got toasted before. Jalen Ramsey has been mossed before. If you could point out a couple plays, well, that means he's pretty good majority of the time, and then there's a handful of hiccups. And you remember just the handful of hiccups. Darius Slay can still ball. This was a great move by Howie. The question becomes, is CJ Gardner-Johnson going to be back? I'll say it this way. It's hard for me to believe that the perfect scenario of all three returning is going to happen. With that said, I don't know if CJ Gardner-Johnson sees the market the way he anticipated. He probably thought he was going to get a huge contract by now. And it seems quiet. The only other report, unless I'm missing something, was Denver has interest. But I almost wonder if this is a negotiation tactic. One team's interested. Maybe there's more. Maybe there's more. I'm not saying others haven't checked in or he's not talking to anybody or anything like that. I'm sure you see a player like that. You see his interceptions. You know he's a ball hawk. There's something to it. But the fact that it's like Denver's interested, I wonder if he's using that as leverage to go back to the Eagles and say, yeah, I want to be here. I want to kind of go back and run it back with this talent. I know we can get to the Super Bowl again. I believe in Jalen Hurts, by the way, who's a stud and going to lead this team to some really good spots. But there is another team. So Howie, remember that. CJ is 25 years old. This is the time for him to get a lot of cash. The thing with Slay is, he's 32, 33? He wanted to get more probably, but are teams willing to spend an aggressive amount on 32, 33-year-old cornerback? And by the way, you had to trade for Darius Slay too. So he wasn't a UFA. That's another huge portion to this. You have to trade for him and then also pay him a lot of money. It's a lot different compared to being a 25-year-old UFA. Two different positions, though. A safety position. CJ has versatility, which can add to that, though. From his angle, could play in the slot, can play safety. But what's the safety market right now? It's interesting. It's a little quiet, though, on the CJ Gardner-Johnson front, which makes me believe Howie is pulling out the magic wand and trying to manipulate some things and fit everything where it needs to go. I feel they want to come back and return. I feel like they want to do what they did last season because they realize how special they were as a defense. But I'm having a blast right now watching Howie do his thing. It's like Steph Curry in the fourth. I mean that. This is Howie's season. This is when he gets things done. It was a little quiet early, but if you even look at the history of Howie Roseman, and you look at the moves that he made even last season, March 21st is when they signed Kaiser White. April 28th is when they got A.J. Brown. May 13th was when James Bradberry was acquired, and August 30th was CJ Gardner-Johnson. Go back to a few years before that. The move for Ronald Darby when they traded with the Buffalo Bills and Jordan Matthews was in the deal. There was a draft pick attached to that as well. Like, that was late into that training camp and heading into the regular season. Early regular season stuff. Late training camp. It's not about being the first. It's about waiting the market out to get people at the right time. And there's players that are going to get released. And that's how they landed James Bradberry. Now, look at it. They waited to get Bradberry. Not that you knew that was going to happen, but I'm saying this is part of how you can benefit from it. And now he's signed for multiple years. You solidified a spot for multiple years because of how long Howie Roseman waited. And it's not just some guy. He's a very talented guy. He also picked up depth. Oh, my God. Depth. Holy hell. Depth. Greedy Williams. Good depth piece. Depth. Picked up death. Jesus. Unbelievable. I like that signing, though. Oh, man. I have to shake that one off. With Greedy, you know, it's a low-risk, high-reward type move. But I'll tell you what this does do. It solidifies a non-corner going in the first round for the Eagles. Any way possible that Howie Roseman can push back drafting another corner in the first round because it's been over 20 years, he's going to do it. We know what they want to do. They want to go after some sort of lineman, a defensive interior lineman, an edge rusher. They want someone on the defensive side or offensive line for eventually the replacement of Lane Johnson. I can't knock them because all they had is unbelievable success in the trenches my whole entire life. And you bring Slay back, and now you get Greedy. Like, this is what they're going to do. Once again, hard for me to knock it, but if you can get Gonzalez, if you can get Witherspoon, think about how long they can stay. You don't need it right now, but I'm saying if you didn't bring back Slay and you had Bradberry, Slay ended up getting traded for, or you cut him, or whatever it is, right? He ends up leaving. And you slotted in a Gonzalez. Cost efficient for a long period of time. That's a staple to your defense. But nope. That's not what they do. It's crazy. But if you pull moves off like this, it's hard for me to complain. It's more just a crazy, wild stat to know that that's just one area they won't put a lot of stock into in the draft. First round, that is. I've seen a lot of success in my life, though. So, once again, I'm not pulling my hair out, and they find other ways to get talent at that position. But it's just funny because they're willing to spend. They're willing to pay a lot of cash. Look at the money they've spent on Slay and Bradberry. They put money into it, so they clearly feel like it's worthy of paying a lot of cash to. We feel that the position is important enough to put a bag in that spot. But they won't draft one at a cost-efficient rate for a young, cheap talent. Right? Is that crazy? I don't know. And then you can spend that money in other areas. But maybe they feel it's easier to trade or find corners and pay them that way than it is linemen. They'd rather breed those guys. Fair enough. Like Fletcher Cox, for example. Talk about a transition. Brandon Graham, 1 year, $10 million. I'm cool with it. Apparently, Joe Douglas and the Jets made an offer that was bigger, and that's a common theme surrounding a lot of these players. Bradberry apparently left some money on the table. Now, I don't know to what degree, but I'm just saying, there was other avenues to go. Fletcher Cox returning, and the Jets aren't bums anymore. If you get Aaron Rodgers, and their defense was really good last year, it's a good defense. I'm sure that's intriguing. It's not far. You're just going up 95. So it's not as if some bum team reached out and wanted to pay Fletcher Cox more money, but he would lose a bunch. Just like there were some Eagles fans upset about Darius Slay, thinking that, or not really upset, but thinking that Darius Slay can't play anymore. There's this narrative that Fletch can't play anymore. He could play. He's not 26. He's not 27. He's not in his prime, but he did have 7 sacks last season from your interior. When you lose Hargrave, getting back 7 sacks is very important. If you remove the name Fletcher Cox, and if Howie Roseman signed a defensive tackle for $10 million who had 7 sacks last season, and his name was John Smith, and you didn't have that emotional attachment to him, you'd be like, wow, he signed John Smith. He had 7 sacks. That's good because you lost Javon Hargrave. And Fletch can still do it. When you ask him to play 70 snaps, yeah, things got a little tough for the guy. But between him and Brandon Graham had 11 sacks. Fletch had 7. That's 18 total sacks. And you're bringing them back for $16 million. With how many holes they had entering this offseason on the defensive side, the fact that they plugged in as many as they did with this level of talent, regardless the name, it's not them getting sentimental. These are one-year deals. Brandon Graham for $6 million, 11 sacks last year, got $6 million to come back. That's not a sentimental overpay and spending all this cap space on players they just feel an attachment to. It's a one-year deal with guys coming off decent seasons. And I'll credit Tyrone on this because he brought this up. You know, the issue in the past was spending a lot on Alshon Jeffrey and that. This isn't that. This isn't Alshon Jeffrey situation. And even the year after the Super Bowl, with your backup quarterback, Nick Foles, you had the double doink against Chicago, and then Alshon Jeffrey had the mishap with the ball through his hands against the New Orleans Saints. Who knows what could have happened? But they weren't far off from being a competitive. They were a competitive playoff team that year. And the difference is between this season and that year is you have Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts. So I'm just saying, if Jalen Hurts was on that team wasn't a mess. It turned into it after, but these are one-year deals. I don't see it the same way. I would call it out if it was. If this was how we play in the heart game, not the football game, the heart game, then I would rip it apart. Now, maybe there's some love to him, obviously, but it's more based off the football decision and the football field than anything else. I like it. I like both. Both moves with the line, defensive line. So this is who they lost. TJ Edwards to the Bears, Hargrave to the 49ers, Epps to the Raiders, Dillon to the Titans, or Dillard to the Titans, Kaiser White to Arizona, Minshew to the Colts, and Sanders to the Panthers. We went through all this, and I didn't even mention the big one. Jason Kelce returns. And the way he did it, with the F-bomb in the statement on Twitter, it almost seems, I don't want to look too far ahead, and there's a lot that can happen, and every year we're going to continue to talk about this, but it kind of seemed like he had energy for more than just one. I'm just saying, what am I basing that off of? Just saying I'm not done yet. It's not like I got one more year left in me. I can do this one more time. It was like, I'm not done yet. Like, hey, but we got to credit Jalen Hurts for this because I don't know if Jason Kelce feels that same adrenaline and feels that same way and feels as confident as he does to win if it's not for the quarterback. They all love him, man. A.J. Brown, Darius Slay. A lot of this goes back to, I can win with this guy. Why do people want to go to Kansas City? Patrick Mahomes. People want to go to Cincinnati because of Joe Burrow. You want to go to the Bills? Josh Allen. There's something to be said about having that type of cat under center. Isaac Seumalo hasn't been selected yet anywhere or picked up anywhere. But I anticipate seeing Cam Jurgens play the guard. Isaac was supposed to be Jason Kelce's replacement. Landon Dickerson was supposed to be his replacement. Cam Jurgens was supposed to be his replacement, and he just keeps going and going and going and going. I mean, it's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. I saw a stat, by the way, for Penny. And, okay, so here's a Darius Slay stat for his second halves. The last 12 games, 71% completion percentage. First 8 games, 49.1% completion percentage. I also think Jonathan Gannon played a role in some of this stuff because of how soft coverage he played. He didn't let Darius Slay be as Darius Slay. Darius Slay could have been even better, in my opinion, if you wanted to be aggressive with him, dare the other team's wide receivers to actually do something, things like that. But yeah, Sheil Kapadia actually had the stats. He does stuff for the Ringer now. He had some stats about Penny. Since 2000, there have been 247 running backs with at least 300 career carries. Among that group, his 5.7 yards per carry ranks first. He's had one stretch in his career, which he's been in the league for 5 seasons, where he's had at least 10 carries for 5 straight games. So, among 56 running backs with at least 150 carries over the last 2 years, Penny ranks first in yards per carry, 6.2, and first in yards after contact per rush, 4.43. But he has been healthy for 42 games in 5 seasons, 100-plus rushes in 1 season. High upside, but concerning injury history. I wouldn't be surprised if they still look draft running back. I don't know. The injury history for me is something that I'm not going to forget, and it's a big enough sample size to know that I need to be prepared for it. But I wasn't spending money on Miles Sanders. Miles had a great season. I also wonder, though, his inability to be a threat in the pass game. How much more can Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen do? You already have to factor in A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. Those are some special playmakers. The threat of Hurts using his legs with some of these options and these RPOs, that's another added layer. Imagine if you had to worry about a pass game out of the backfield too. I didn't know if Kenneth Gainwell was ready for that big jump to be the guy. I'll tell you what, I saw a lot in the postseason. I'm not fully there yet, but I saw enough to intrigue me. If they roll in with Scott, who they re-signed, Gainwell, and Penny, I don't hate it. And I think with this offensive line and the threat of Hurts and his legs, a lot of players can do a lot in this run game. But yeah, it's good enough. It's good enough. And I'm excited to see Gainwell in a bigger role. He looked hungry. He looked determined. He looked like he was ready to make a statement. And we'll see. See if he gets an opportunity to and if he cashes in on it. I'm fascinated what they do with that running back room, though. Like, if they start with that week 1, I'd be shocked if that's what lasts until the end of the season. I guess that's sort of my mind with the running back. Okay, I acknowledge what they are right now. But where are they week 5, 6, 7, 8? Because I don't think it's going to stay the same. Whether they address it early, before the year, whether they address it in the draft, whether they address it mid-season because someone goes down, which we've seen them do with Jay Ajayi before. When Howie strikes, sometimes you have no idea it's coming. I had no idea CJ Gardner-Johnson was coming. You just don't know. Someone's going to show the hell up this season. Hell, maybe it's Milton Williams. Milton Williams last year had 4 sacks. This has been a little bit of a conversation on the best show ever. I don't know the ceiling for Milton Williams. I like Fletcher Cox being back here because I wouldn't like going into a season if Milton Williams was now in the role of where Fletcher Cox is. I'm not ready for that level of jump for him yet. But it took Josh Sweat a little bit, and then he became an unbelievable player for you. Is Milton Williams following that path? We'll find out. I love where we are at right now. I also want to check Twitter right at this moment because knowing my luck, as we're getting ready to wrap things up, here comes a big signing. CJ Gardner-Johnson back with the Eagles. No. All I'm saying is it's shady that it's this quiet. The fact that it's this quiet tells me something. He's tweeting things. He's deleting it. He does like to run his mouth a little bit on social. I'm sure Howie Roseman isn't loving it. Like, yo, dude, calm it down a little bit. Can you tame it down a little bit, please? But, all right, I wanted to give you my thoughts on kind of where we are in this time. March Madness has been crazy. Howie Roseman has been crazy. And that's that. Thank you guys so much. I love you. Catch you on the next one.